What is up, everybody? Welcome here to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm your host, Rockin Robbie Billups. We got a great conversation lined up for you today. This is a creative, dynamic duo. They've worked together before on books like Time Before Time. Now they've got an upcoming Terminator book from Dynamite Entertainment called Terminator Metal. So let's bring them in, the team of Rory McConville and Declan Shalvey. How are y'all doing?
Woo.
Welcome into the show. Thank you for joining us today, y'all.
Cheers for having
us.
Thanks,
Robbie. Thanks for the thumbnail for this interview. Like, it's like the only photo in existence of me and Rory smiling.
I was just thinking that. I think it might be the only photo of us ever together, maybe.
I had to do a deep Google image search for that one, right? Because I was trying to find pictures, and then I got plenty of Declan, and then Rory, I got some of you with a lot of hair, some of you looking like you do now, and I was just I don't know. Then I found the one where the two of you were together, and I was like, this is just perfect.
This is the one, yeah. No, there are some crazy photos of hair that I miss dearly running around the internet, but those were about 10 years old, I think.
All right. Well, we're starting the show off pretty good. We're already making you feel insecure about your hair, but so how you two must have known y'all known each other for a while. How did you guys meet? How'd you hook up?
You might remember better than I do, Rory. Well, as best I remember it, I remember hearing about this kid who had his comics on it. Do you remember Zuda Comics? It was a DC digital imprint years ago. And there was some 16-year-old from Ireland had a comic on it, and I'm like, what little shit has managed to get it on fucking DC Comics, little scut. But that was a long time ago, admittedly. But I do remember. I think the best I remember, Rory, used to send me some short stories you were doing. Like, you'd have different people draw stuff, and you'd send it on to me. And if I recall, was it you asked me? You were getting to do a graphic novel at O'Brien's Press. It was a small publisher, or a graphic novels publisher in Ireland. I can't remember, were you attached to it and you got asked me for a recommendation?
Yeah, so I was doing a graphic novel kind of on an area of Irish history called the 1913 lockout, and I got onto you and you recommended Paddy Lynch, who ended up drawing it.
I think that's the first time we talked, probably.
Yeah, I'd say so. And then I feel like we probably emailed a bit, but then I remember, I think maybe we had spoken a bit, but I remember having a proper chat with you when at Thought Bubble one year after I won the pitch competition. I think you came over to me to say congrats and stuff, and then...
That doesn't sound like me.
No, never. Yeah, that's true. Stay off my turf, I think, was the end of the conversation.
That was it, yeah. yeah.
So, I mean, that's what... At least, I mean, the Big Jim thing was about 14 years ago. That's a long time.
Yeah. What the hell? Well, because I just remember Rory as somebody kind of starting up, but also in Ireland, a lot of us, like in the small press scene, or professionals would know each other. But Rory kind of moved away to London, so wouldn't have seen as much of him. But I always saw that he was doing stuff. He was one of those people who you had to take aside and go like, look, what you'd want to be doing is X, Y, and Z. He was always somebody who was doing something. And I always really admired, well, let's not go crazy, but had positive feelings. But because it's tough, you're not going to get anywhere in comics unless, it's great to get encouragement, but you really need to be able to do it without any, because there's just so much to it. And then, I think then, you, Rory, gotten to do a lot of 2000 AD stuff and a good run on Judge Dredd, and I'd started writing work, and after Bog Bodies I wanted to do something else, but I didn't really have much. I didn't have the mental space to be able to take on a whole new thing. So we were at Top Bubble one year, and I just broached the subject of writing something together with him, because I thought it would be mutually beneficial, because I could get something new out, he could get something new out, maybe to a different audience. I don't think either of us had co-written anything with anybody else, so there was a big kind of learning curve there, and trying to figure out how to do it. But we just had a really good experience working on Time Before Time together. We did it for what was it, two or so years. But yeah.
Heck yeah. And now here you are today on Pop Culture Philosophers together, talking about the work. Something that you said was crazy to me. Rory, you got a gig doing DC digital books at 16 years of age?
Yeah, it was kind of...
Why are you trying to pull a Jim Shooter, man? What's going on here? How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I suppose, right place, right time. Like, you know, the Zuda comics were just launching at the time, and it was, you know, it's one of the things, particularly when you're over in Ireland, like there's so few actual opportunities to get your work in front of editors or anything. And yeah, I just, you know, had no fear at that age, so just kept sending stuff in, and yeah, eventually got a contract to do a series there. And then I went off to college and got distracted for a couple of years, so that set things back a while. But no, it was a fantastic experience working at Zuda. Like, it would be great if they brought something like that back for
yeah. So if you get that gig after sending multiple stuff in at 16, you must have been wanting to do this for a while. When did you first get into comics? Like, what's your comic book origin story?
My comic book origin was, there was a time I remember vividly. I had my, because Ireland being a very Catholic country, I had my Holy Communion at about 8, and
good boy.
It's 8, good boy, yeah. And half my family live up in Dublin, so basically the wonderful thing about your communion is that you just go and collect a load of money off your relatives. And so my dad was taking me up to see that side of the family, and we were getting the train up, and he just told me to get something off the shelf at a newsagent, and I grabbed this old Panini reprint of... They did these kind of Marvel Heroes Reborn ones of kind of, you know, a Fantastic Four, an Iron Man, and a Hulk or something, and they compiled... They were, say, 2 years behind where America was, but they reprinted them for the English and the Irish market. And yeah, it was just, you know, like a drug. Like, you know, I think one of the things that I miss so much about being a kid is that feeling of just being able to, like, be thrown into a universe, a new universe, and not knowing what the hell is going on, and just having to kind of figure your way out through the story. And I think, again, because it was a pre-internet time, you really couldn't, like, just go up online and find out, oh, that means this or that means that. And you really had to, and also because Ireland got so few comics at the time, you really had to, like, jigsaw your kind of understanding of what was actually happening month to month. Like, so yeah, that was it, and that was where it started, really. And then, as my parents would put it, I developed a very, very, very expensive hobby.
I think me and Deck pretty much got similar stories, right? Like, we get into it at a young age and we just get sucked in. And what's crazy is so many people, we all have this story of discovering comics, especially superhero comics, feeling like there's this whole world that has existed since the dawn of time, that, you know, like, you're just trying to piece things together. And nowadays there's so much, like, effort on, oh, nobody knows where to start. We always got to do a new #1. We got to make it new reader friendly. And I'm like, comics can be new reader friendly, but also, like, part of the appeal to me when I was a kid was there's this whole world I can dive into now. Oh my goodness, this footnote says Avengers 114. I have to own that comic now. I have to know what happened. What are they referencing, right? And I don't know. I kind of feel like we missed that a little bit in today's industry, because I think that, I don't know, I think that kids and that adults, even, and young adults, are smarter than we give them credit for, you know. And maybe it's just the world we live in now with TikTok and Netflix and everything so easily accessible, and the internet, like you were talking about, where, you know, and what that's crazy. Like, if I start reading Hulk today, I can go onto the Wikipedia page and kind of catch up on all of the main Hulk bits. We didn't have that back in the day, but it was kind of, I don't know, I almost felt like it was a part of the appeal to me. Do y'all feel that same way about when you were first?
Yeah, I mean, we were at the age where if you had to find this stuff out, you had to, like, try find a place that had back issues, and even that was really, really tough. Say in Ireland, there weren't that many places. And I agree with everything you all just said, but I also think, like, you know, there's so much attention. There's so much, like, demand for everyone's attention now. Like, we were something of a captive audience. If you could only find one X-Men comic in 2 months, you really, really poured over every page. But, like, there isn't that much the attention economy now is so demanding, it's really hard like to expect people to like, try figure it out down the line when something else is flashing in your periphery. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'd say it's just probably much, much harder to do now than before, where, I mean, you just had what you had and you had to make the best of it and desperately try find something else. So, I mean, I would think maybe the culture has just changed, but I do think there is something to be said for like, like not knowing what the hell is happening and just desperately trying to figure it out. I can't remember the last time I had that feeling.
I think actually just reminded me. I remember some of my favorite issues would be like a part 3 of a 6-part story, and I would only have part 3, and you would just kind of have to almost, and it's in some ways it's a great creative exercise because you kind of have to invent what happened before and what happened subsequently. Like it really pushes your engagement a bit more with the material.
Yeah, I've said it before, but I think the first X-Men comic I got had Cyclops and Jean Grey in it. I was like, oh, great, I know them. And then the very next issue was the Phalanx Covenant Part 2, but it was the next issue. I mean, where's Part 1? And I had like Sabretooth, Emma Frost, Banshee, and Jubilee in it. I'm like, where's Wolverine? Like it was, and the next issue was Part 4. Like, so where's Part 3? And you have to go look through, and you can see, there'll be like some kind of like, Marvel Comics page, and they'll tell you there's other comics. You're like, oh, there's an X-Men comics that isn't X-Men. And then you see there's X-Force, and there's all like, those you're slowly opening up. But it's, I mean, arguably it was the most impenetrable thing ever. But it was so exciting and cool. You just wanted to learn everything you could.
You are right about the grab for attention today, right? Because you're right, man. When I was young, like I got super into Fantastic Four, right? And I've been actually recently rereading some of my Fantastic Fours from the early 90s. And there are some of these issues where I'm opening them up and I'm like, these things are so beaten up. But I remember when I had like 15 comics and I would just read those 15 comics over and over and over again because I didn't have the internet. I didn't have a smartphone. We had like, I don't know, at best 50 channels and they all sucked. You know what I'm saying? So like there wasn't anything to watch. There wasn't anything to do. And man, I would just read these comics all the time. And I wonder if there's some kid out there right now who's just keeps reading, I don't know, Demon Slayer Volume 4 and is just hoping that one day he can get Volume 5 or Volume 3 or something like that. But it's so accessible nowadays. So, all right. So you guys worked on time before. Go ahead.
Sorry, we just it's because Rory mentioned the Panini reprints. I think we were so lucky, or Rory's a lot younger than I am, but I remember when they started because I got you got a sliver of what the American comics were doing, but those Panini reprints were American comics repackaged and republished, so you could kind of get like what's happening now and then what was happening before, and it was slowly catching up. So we didn't have Wikipedia, but we did start to get some kind of reference of like, I was reading the end of the Clone Saga in American comics and then reading the start of it in the reprints. So you did kind of feel like you were building some knowledge. So I think, again, those things are timing, I think, is probably everything with this stuff when you get into it and what becomes available. But sorry, I talked.
Oh, no, you're right. And now 30 years later, the Clone Saga still makes no sense. Right? That thing just went on and on and on. It's like I can just imagine. Could you imagine editorial at these days just being like, I don't know, what if Norman Osborn comes back? I don't know. Let's just like what do we got left, man? Let's just go. All right, so you guys worked on Time Before Time, with a little bit of time travel and playing with time there, and now you're working together on Terminator Metal. Now, Declan, you just wrapped up, right, your Terminator series that you did. Mm-hmm. It was kind of set within the world of Terminator, but it was kind of doing its own thing. And I really liked it. I like the approach that you took of like these single stories that kind of told one story overall. So what is Terminator Metal? Is it connected to that series? Is it connected to any of the movies? And why is Rory helping you out this time?
Sorry, what was the first one again? I totally.
Is Terminator Metal connected to the previous Terminator series?
Yes and no. Like it's part of the same world, but like it's not a direct continuation of the story. As say Terminator 10. Terminator was designed as 10-issue story. So basically, the book did really well, and Dynamite were looking to maybe have the series go on initially, which is great. But I had very much planned it as 10, and there was a kind of a wider story that like didn't feel right to kind of tack on more story to that. But the format of the comic, which was just being able to hop to different time periods and tell like cool stories, that kind of engine, as I'm calling it, was really working. So this new series is the same format, as in it'll more of a focus on the Future War stuff, but it's the same approach. There will be some connections, but it's not like you won't have to have read the series that's just ended. But if you have read it, you might notice some little connections. I think it's good to build a sense of a cohesive universe, but also the nature of the stories is that they hop around. So it would be dangerous to try and tie everything together, because then you lose the freedom to kind of jump around. So yes and no is the excellent answer to your question there. The second one was,
is it connected to any particular movie timeline?
No,
because the Terminator franchise, by the way, we just did a show about a month or two ago where we covered all 6 of the movies. Man, that timeline, that's hard to figure out, dude. Like, there's a lot of jumbles in there.
Yeah, Rory and I talked about this when we were kind of mulling over stories, and essentially my approach is like, the less you're dealing with lore, the better. And we kind of had that thing with Time Before Time too. Is like we created rules so that we're not tripping over each other. So it's really, we're working with the basic concept of the Terminator, while not, that's why we're not delving into like the history of Sarah Connor or this, that, and the other. Like, I feel like the films like have really, they've tread that area so much. There's no point going there. So my kind of feeling was to like look the other direction and do, other stories. So not really looking to tie it into any other films or anything like that, because some things are contradicting each other, and this. So I'm trying to just play not loose with the continuity, just kind of tiptoe around it, if that makes sense. Because I think things can get very convoluted if you're not careful, and especially because we're jamming ideas out every new idea every issue. So if you're not careful, you can trip over yourself. Never mind trip over somebody else.
Yeah, Rory, how did you? Rory, how did you get involved with the project?
Well, it was Deck came to me, and I think in large part because, as you probably are aware, Deck is one of the busiest people in comics. So I think he needed an extra pair of hands for this, and also I suppose because we have experience co-writing. Done in ones are quite idea intensive, and I've kind of got quite a bit of experience of that from working on Judge Dredd and other things. So, and the fact that we did work together and didn't kill each other by the end of it also meant that this was it would work. It would work, as that photo
like two
evidence.
We're two issues away from that.
Yeah.
That's why it's issue. That's why there's 29 issues of Time Before Time, because it's the 30th.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that was the case was when Nate Cosby asked about doing more Terminator, when I'm doing a lot of Thundercat stuff and, other bits and bobs. I hadn't planned for it, but I really liked the idea of doing more. I just knew that I just didn't really have the mental space or physical time to do it all on my own. And it was actually Nate who suggested Rory, I'm guessing because he knew we worked together Time Before Time. And yeah, Rory, I mean, I don't know if you know what Future Shocks are. They're, in 2000 AD, they're basically new sci-fi ideas. And it's a new one, self-contained. And Rory had been doing those for years previously. So he's really good training at like coming up with a new idea. So the nice kind of thing with this book is it's kind of like doing Future Shocks, but you get a whole issue and there's a Terminator in it. But so I had someone, I knew one, me and Rory could work together. Plus I also missed working with Rory. It was nice to have we were always bouncing stuff off each other, and writing on my own, I don't really have that as much. So that's a nice thing to have too. But it also just does free up a lot of mental energy and just physical time. I don't think I'd be able to do the book on my own, given my current workload. But so just it's kind of ideal, really. I get to kind of have fun with Rory again and get to do more of these stories, because that's the one thing about the book, was I realized, was the overall story for the current series that just ended. There was a thing there, but there's clearly so much room to do different stuff that, there's a much wider tapestry to play with there. And I just, like Rory said, like every month a new idea is really tough. So if I can, if both of us just need to come up with a new idea every second month, and work it together, it just does make it it makes it, one, less taxing overall, but two, more fun to kind of pass around.
What's the collaboration process like? You guys just kind of pound it out and like divide it up and say, I got these pages, I'll write the scripts for these, or do you just kind of go over and make passes over each other's work? How does that work out?
Well, I put my name on top, and job done.
And then I write the script. Yeah, that's how it is.
Oh, so you get the Stan Lee kind of vibe there. I got you.
Yeah. No, well, we were doing Time Before Time. Like, neither of us had co-written anything with. I mean, had you, Rory? I don't think you had.
No. It was the first time.
So we, I had asked around some people I knew who had done it and trying to figure it out. And I think the thing we realized is just not getting each other's way. So it's mostly us talking on the phone and kind of coming up with stuff and throwing things around and moving them around or tweaking them here and there. And then Rory would kind of do most of the actual like heavy lifting of the outline. I'd give notes on that. He'd write the bulk of the issues, and I'd take a scene. So, and then we'd kind of go over them again. So we found a way of working together where like there's no point where like I write this page and you write that page. And in some ways it can end up being more work. Then I think we at one stage we're kind of realizing it was kind of more work to write together. So that was Time Before Time. But if Rory, if you want to talk about how we're doing this.
Yeah, so like say with issue 1 in particular, that is like a straight 50-50. We both took half the issue, wrote it, then swapped and kind of did a pass each to kind of knit it all together. But
because also that first issue is important because it's the first one. So I felt we both needed to kind of, flesh out what is the issue, why is this first issue the first one, so it felt right to literally co-write it. Like that,
and kind of set the tone for the world and everything. And then for subsequent issues, we're kind of divvying them up where like one of us will kind of take the lead and then the other will give notes, so we'll kind of alternate who's leading every month or every second.
I think that's the way for us to kind of get out of each other's way, because you can end up like going, I think originally with Time Before Time there was a lot more back and forth, and like you're like, good God, like how many times are we gonna pass this over? Whereas like I think this is a much cleaner way of like, if somebody can take the lead on one issue, then the other person can take the lead on the other one, and then you're swapping over, and then kind of each person has their eye over. So it's kind of like maybe 80-20 co-written, like say maybe I'm doing 80 on one issue and Rory's doing 20, and then on the next one it flips. I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, which you couldn't really do on an ongoing series because that would just be slightly more chaotic. Whereas with done in ones, at least that's
true. Actually, yeah, I think this is not, I don't say easier to write, but it's a lot cleaner. Because it's done in one. Like Rory's writing 4 and I'm writing 3 right now, and like we don't, I don't need to say like, hey, does this character leave the gun here? Because it's going to be needed. Like stuff like that could be very tough when you're doing like an ongoing story like Time Before Time. But with Terminator, it's actually a little bit like you just kind of get your toy and play with it for a while, and then show the other person.
I know that you said a lot of the book will focus on some of the future stuff, but are you also, you said you're kind of doing the same format. So I guess like self-contained one and done stories, part of a whole thing. Are you playing with different timelines again, or like different time eras, I guess I should say, like you did in the last series?
I mean, we're just gonna do the future stuff, but then I realized like there is a bit of future stuff in the. Actually, I think it's hilarious because it's future war, but like if you look at the dates, it's actually the past.
Yes.
Because we're set in the distant future of 2005.
Oh yeah.
But for the context of the franchise, it is the future. There was I didn't want to do much of that in the first series because I kind of felt it was too obvious. So, there's a bit of it in issue 6 and then issue 10 because I didn't want to ignore it either because it's cool stuff, but I didn't want to emphasize it. When we were talking about a new series, then I felt like the approach was good, but we were trying to figure out what's the justification for a new series. Why isn't this just issue 11 of Terminator? So yeah, I can't remember who decided to shift the focus to the future war, but also I think that can also get a bit too. What's the word I'm looking for? Like just too much of it. So they're sprinkling in a little bit of like I'll say it here, like I'm writing issue 3 now, and it's like cowboy. There's a cowboy Terminator. So like
that's so cool. Like I was always like, just having recently gone through all these movies, I'm like, why do they not do that? Like kind of what they're doing with Predator now, right? With Prey and with Badlands. Why not have a Terminator show up in like ancient China or something like that? And there's like, I don't know, like, and maybe if they go too far back, they mess up the formation of Skynet or whatever, but like, I love that idea because it's so rich, man. There's a whole world.
I mean, we talked about this, that for me, it's important that like, it's not too, it's not prehistoric times or something. I think it needs to have a connection to, the technological age. But the cowboy thing was just a cool idea, and I'm like, I want to do a cowboy story, and we're like, yeah, but it's future war. I'm like, I think sprinkling those in among what could potentially become very like dour and just too similar, to kind of break up those a little bit. So like, the plan is to have some of those kind of more, I don't want to say wacky, but like just kind of like, riff, story riff kind of concepts. Because again, it's a single issue, as long as it makes sense within the overall story. I think that'll stop it from getting.
You could even have a bit in there where their time travel technology glitches or something, and the Terminator goes back way too far and has to wait like 100 years to hit his target. Or something like that, right? That's a cool idea.
Robbie,
have you been listening?
Have you read our outlines?
Okay, never. I just remember Genesis. I think that was part of the things in Genesis where he had to wait.
But I mean, look, that's the cool thing about this format is it's not about the Arnie model. It's not about like the Connor family. Like those things are fine, and but again, the films have very much kind of leaned in on that.
A lot.
Yeah, it's been done. I just think there's way more fun stuff you can do with a murder time robot.
Yes.
And yeah, that's what I'm definitely trying, or we're trying to lean into. Is it's a great idea. It is a great idea factory, and there's so much you can do with it. I actually think it's kind of limiting to not to criticize the films or anything, but like it just felt like the obvious thing to do, and I think like turning the car the other direction and going that way, there's way more room out there than there is, the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It gets me excited. Like I said, we just watched these 6 films, and I think one of the time, like on the show, I even said like, I just feel like at some moment in this timeline, there's like random Terminators just dropping from the sky everywhere. Like they just keep sending things back and like trying to undo this and undo that, and it gets that whole series. As much as I love Terminator 1 and 2, and honestly, I even got a soft spot for 3 and 4. I really do. I really, really do. Even though I wouldn't say they're perfect or as good as 1 and 2, that whole franchise eventually just kind of collapses under the weight of itself. Mm-hmm. And I'm not asking you to talk shit about the Terminator films, but Link wants to know, I guess I'll rephrase it for you, Link. Are there any Terminator films that you think don't quite hit the mark, and which ones do hit the mark? Or I guess that what's better, 1 or 2? Because that's a big common debate at my comic shop is which one is 1 and what's better, 1 or 2? And I don't know, which ones do you like the most and which ones do you think don't quite hit the mark?
Well, I haven't seen them all, to be honest. I didn't see the last 2. Is it Genesis and Dark Fate?
Oh yeah, dude, don't worry. You didn't miss nothing.
I have also seen the last 2.
Yeah, I'm just not interested in the Connors. As a viewer, I wasn't interested, so I didn't go for it. I saw Rise of the Machines in the cinema, and I remember hating it, but that was 20 years. That was a long time ago, so I haven't rewatched it.
It's not good. I just like the ending. I like the idea that Judgment Day is inevitable, right? That's the one thing I like.
Yes, because at the end it does happen. Yeah, well, also look like we're doing that with the book too. Like, because I think we're getting some press questions about about changing time, but I'm like, the approach from the beginning of the first series I did was like, no, it happens. Like, there's no, like, I don't think it's interesting anymore to find out how to stop a bad thing from happening in the future. Again, like this franchise is 40 years old. It's done the best version of those stories, so I'm not interested in retreading that. But I rewatched Salvation a while ago, and I saw it in the cinema, and I didn't remember liking it that much, but I rewatched it a while ago, and I actually quite like it. I think it's really good. It's just not a patch on the first two though. I would tell you that Terminator 2 is my favorite, but like that's the first one I saw. Like, I didn't see Terminator until probably 10 years later. I was a kid when I saw Terminator 2, which is weird because, like, so much of this based off the first film, but you don't care. When you're a kid, you're like, I'm on board. Murder robot, fine.
Oh, yeah, like I watched Army of Darkness before I even heard of Evil Dead 1 or 2, and I just thought, like, this was the movie. Like, I didn't realize there was something that came before.
But it's like that's exactly like what we were talking about before, of like you just kind of jump in and go with it, like, and figure it out afterwards, like. Or
and then I did see the original, and I thought it was fine. Like, it's not a patch on Terminator 2. That's just think Terminator 2 is so revolutionary, in my opinion. But then I went back. I remember a few years ago, I went back and I rewatched the first one. I'm like, actually, this is like, and then of course I rewatched it before I started writing the book. But going back and kind of watching it with a better sense of scale, like the core idea is so interesting. And while I love where it went to with Terminator 2, like that was my challenge, was how do we do something interesting that isn't that. And that's where I realized the core idea actually has way more scope than the way, not to criticize the way it went. Like I said, I love Terminator 2. But because my perspective of Terminator was Terminator 2 and then the original, my nostalgia brain, I had to get over my nostalgia brain basically and kind of just evaluate that first one. I think the first one is fantastic. It's such, like, it's not a big sci-fi film so much as much of it's kind of like a B-movie thriller. It's very noirish. It's
like such a lean film. Yeah.
Yes, like very, very, very lean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's
Terminator
almost
2
like Michael Myers. He's just, when I was rewatching it, it was giving me anxiety because I was like, they can't kill this thing. It just won't stop, man. Yeah. And I couldn't even imagine what it's like in 1984 going into the theater. There is no Terminator 2. There is no franchise. You just go in and watch this movie, incredibly low budget. And it just, this was the first time where I like really understood how important that first one was, not just a setup for part 2. Because I'm the same way. Sure. I watched part 2 when I was a kid. That movie came out, I was like 10 years old. I loved it. That movie was made for me, dude.
But like, if you look back the first issue of Terminator that I did with Luke Sparrow, like, that's, I was clearly leaning into the thriller, noirish element of it. Whereas I would say now with the first issue of Metal, I guess the closest thing to compare it to film-wise would probably be Salvation, because we're right smack in the middle of a war. It's a big war story. Terminators, resistance, like, it's definitely an evolution of what the first book is. But like, I don't want to directly compare it to, say, a movie necessarily, because we're trying to go like original and spread out rather than, try make another Terminator 2 or Rise of the Machines or anything like that. Like, do my best to like not look at any of that stuff and just try and deal with like small ideas that big consequences end, and then next idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Rory, what about you? What do you think about the franchise overall?
I think for me, favorite probably is the first. I think it's just like, I remember like I rewatched it again recently as well, and just the way it distills exposition is crazy. Like, it gives you so little, but not that it gives you so little, it gives you exactly what you need, but like, it's such a contrast to the spoon feeding you get with so many modern films, like of just the train is leaving and you're just on it and you just have to figure it out as you go along. And I think just what they were able to do with so like little is just incredibly still to this day so impressive. Later one, I mean, I've seen 2 and 3, and I think I've seen 4, but then I think, it's that the time travel trap of like kind of once you start changing history, things kind of stop mattering after a certain point because you're not sure what's real and what isn't anymore.
Or do you lose drama? Like if we had that problem with Time Before Time, is if because I remember when we started, I was kind of very much on the board of like, we can play with time, we can play with like what was happening and yada yada yada. But in the end, I mean, I think we would have lost. It was Rory who was more like strict about it, and it was the right call because we could have lost the rung of ourselves. Like, you could forget half the things you wrote and you're confusing yourself, and having that kind of strict, like, you can't change time gives you like genuine repercussions for people's choices. You can't just undo the thing and it mean nothing. Like when something happens, there needs to be some kind of like dramatic reaction to it.
Yeah, I think sometimes with the change history stories, the mechanic of time travel can kind of overwhelm the rest of the story to the point where you just kind of lose focus on the characters. Though, I mean, obviously there have been some great ones, but I think particularly with an ongoing story, it's very hard to keep that going.
But I think it's harder with comics too, like because a different artist. Like if John Connor is the star of issue 1, and then like there's a fill-in artist on issue 3, it might not feel like the same. I think it's different with TV. I think you can do it in TV pretty well, film too, because you can set up, an established look, feel, time, characters, actors, and all that. But comics, you've very little real estate. You've 20, 22 pages a month. It takes a long time to do that type of stuff, and other stuff can, a weird panel might change things, and I don't know. I'm not saying it can be done in comics, but I think it's much harder to do that type of stuff.
Yeah, I just was recently having a conversation with David Pepose, and he had just completed a Cable series. And I was like, hey, man, you did a great job with the Cable series. He's like, oh, thank you, man. I loved working on it, but I'm glad it's over because what a headache having to map out all this time travel, back and forth nonsense, make sure everything ties together cleanly. And I can just imagine that being absolutely nuts. So Terminator Metal.
Yeah, we're lazy. We're lazy, basically.
That's the answer. That's the answer.
Terminator Metal, was it October, November, something like that?
October, yeah.
22nd, I think, yeah.
All right, who's the artist on this book?
Artists don't matter, and I mean, who cares? Art, it's just comics.
Nobody cares.
It's all about the writers.
And covers.
and Declan's doing some covers, right?
Yeah. yeah. I mean, the covers are very, very important. No, and the artist on this issue is Lorenzo Ray, who did like really great job on issue 6 and issue 4, which was 3. Yeah, issue 4 was the submarine issue, and issue 6 was the story about the T-600s. And like he did such a great job on those. Like it's going to be different issues, like the previous series. We're going to have different artists per issue, but especially with a title called Metal, but Lorenzo brought to especially issue 6, and like we just had to go all. I mean, Jesus, wait till you see that. We just saw colors for it's the issue's nearly drawn now, and oh man, it looks fucking class. Lorenzo's really bringing the heat to the metal. I don't know, but amazing stuff. But we have Owen Marin is going to draw issue 2. Who's an artist I know a long time. Issue. Well, that's all we say for now, because there'll be artists you'll remember from the previous series, but some new ones like Owen, and we've other people lined up.
Okay, heck yeah. All right, well, before we wrap up, Declan, you're killing it on Thundercats. As a lifelong Thundercats fan, I'm loving it. I love what Ed's doing with the book, with Thundercats Lost in particular. I love that book. I love how it's kind of coming together a little bit now with Bengali and all that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Because I was waiting a while to get to that. Because that's great. Like it's weaving a little bit of interconnectivity without it being like, you don't have to be reading Thundercats Lost, but if you are, it's additive. You don't have to be reading Thundercats 3, Thundercats Lost. But I mean, why wouldn't you? But the same with the one shots and things like that. Like we're getting to have this great fun of expanding the universe, but in a way that's not too, it's not too exploitative.
Yeah, I'm having so much fun, and at my shop, the sales are still very, very strong on all of the Thundercats books. Even if Mark Spears doesn't do a cover, the sales are still strong. So that's good, man. So first of all, you and Ed, you got to be working on Thunderhawks, Silvercats, whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, I already had it on the show a couple times, and I was like, if y'all don't get away with the Silverhawks Thundercats crossover out of all of this, I'll be very upset. So
that's an interesting
we need
idea.
to tell Nick Barucci to get that going, man. You just let me know. I know.
I mean, no one's ever mentioned it at all, ever. So it's news to me.
All right. Well, you did a great job of Mystique, and anything else coming up on the horizon for you? Maybe some art, like more Old Dog coming or something?
Isn't that enough? Like, Jesus, man, give me a break.
We want more, Declan. Come on.
What can I say? I'm writing Thundercats, and I have I'm writing how would I put it? A mini series that I'm going to draw a little bit of, but that I don't think we can talk about that for a while. But I'm happy to come back and talk about it sometime. That's kind of what I'm gearing up to at the moment. But Thundercats, like I've got it worked up to issue 30. Like that's the mad thing is like I have another year on like solid on that book, which is amazing.
That's so cool, man.
And like seeing Ed's plans for Thundercats Lost and Silverhawk stuff we had a story meeting a while ago, and just like it's so great we can just go anywhere. And also, to be fair, the same with Terminator. Like there's no real licensor issues, which is a real treat. That it's very rare that something you're doing that's too wild, which makes it great to be able to tell interesting comic book stories dealing with a license where the license isn't dominating over the stories. It's great. And doing 1 million covers and just a little bit. It's actually a lot of writing. This year has been mainly writing and covers, but I do have a comic that I'll probably start drawing it near the end of the year, so it won't be out till next year.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. Rory, let's talk about you. First of all, you're doing work over at Spawn. Right now you're on King Spawn. The last issue of King Spawn, if I remember correctly, it was the last one. It was an issue that I felt was very much influenced by Spectre, the Spirit of Vengeance. It's where Spawn is like taking care. There's 3 different characters, I think, and he's like in a way judging them. Was there a direct Spectre reference to that? Because I was reading that and I was like, I felt like I'm reading John Ostrander, Tom Mandrake on Spectre again. I thought that issue was fantastic, man.
Oh, cheers. I wouldn't say direct, but I definitely see the connection you're making totally. That's kind of a thing we've started doing with King Spawn that I'm kind of looking forward to continuing, is this kind of smaller stories about people where Spawn is more that kind of, I suppose, Spectre-like figure of kind of a spirit of vengeance who kind of just shows up and makes life very difficult for people. Because we've kind of been experimenting with the direction for a while now, but I think this is kind of what it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
because I feel like King Spawn has kind of had a problem throughout its history with finding like where does it fit within everything else, because there's so much Spawn right now, right?
No, and I mean I remember when Sean was writing King Spawn and I was on Spawn, we would talk about this a lot, that it was kind of it was very difficult to balance because we were both kind of writing the Dead Zones, Battle for the Throne stuff, and then eventually we kind of just had to figure out that like one of us would take the Throne stuff, and then he started doing kind of more self-contained stories that kind of explored other facets of the world and stuff like. And I think it's gone through a few iterations, but I think we figured out the kind of more horror tone as well for it as well is kind of going to be part of the direction.
If I can ask, actually, because I'm curious, was it very different to move from like the main Spawn book to King Spawn? Like, there was a very different tone you had to switch to, or?
Yeah, it was kind of about finding the tone, really, because I suppose, not to say that the regular Spawn book is kind of superhero-y, but it's a lot more it's a lot more keyed into the wider universe. Whereas when I took over, Todd and Thomas very much wanted it to be kind of off in its own corner, kind of more of a Vertigo title, and really play up the horror aspect of Spawn as well. So yeah, it did. It was a strange experience to kind of switch gears, and that you're writing the same character, but it's a totally different focus, and he's kind of cut off from a lot of, not like totally cut off, but like it's not connected to the universe as much as the book I've been writing for the last couple of years. So that was a shift. It was, but it was an interesting challenge.
Heck yeah! Anything else?
Oh, sorry. This is my show now, Robbie.
Yeah, go ahead.
But like, does that also kind of give you a good, like, not kick up the arse creatively, but like, it stops you from kind of getting too stale on one thing, where you have to come up with a different spin on the character, as opposed to like having a more established road to take?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. Like, the shift in tone, I think, was definitely, it was a big challenge, because I think like horror would not be, I suppose, where my natural inclination would be as a writer. So it was definitely kind of figuring out how to write horror was a big part of that. And yeah, I think it did challenge me, and it's been, I think, improved me as a writer off the back of it.
Okay,
I'm done now, Robbie.
Yeah, you can take back over.
Anything else on the horizon, Rory, that you can mention or talk about? You got things in the works?
There are a couple of other Spawn things, but it's too early to talk about them, I'm afraid. But yeah, heavy Spawn stuff for the foreseeable.
Heck yeah! All right. Well, Terminator Metal comes out in October. Very excited to check it out. Very excited to see you two working together on it. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great chat. Thank you out there in the chat for joining us today. And if you're watching on the replay, we appreciate that. So Rory, Declan, final thoughts. Where can people find you on socials? Are you doing any con appearances? Anything like that you want to plug?
Well, I'm going to Africa in a few days. So if you're there, swing by, I guess. Where else am I going? Oh yeah, New York Comic Con, Baltimore Comic Con, Thought Bubble. I think that's a lot for the rest of the year. Anyway, I'll be doing those shows. And you can find me at Declan Shalvey, all one word, on Instagram, Twitter, and on my website, declanshalvey.com. You can find get a link to my newsletter that I put out every couple of weeks. So like, if you want, I think I might show a page of Terminator in the next one.
Great newsletter, by the way. Great news.
Thanks, man.
It's a great newsletter. So yeah, I love it.
Great. Yeah, thank you. It's much easier for you to say that than me try sell it. So thank you. Like I try to do stuff like I show little peeks or talk about what I'm working on, or do a little interview here and there when I can. But yeah. So I'm that's all me. That's all I got.
Heck yeah.
I have no shows planned for the rest of the year, but I can be found partly because I'm about to have a second child, so my life is about to end for a couple of months. But
more Spawn and a second child, man.
Spawn of Spawn. That's the next. The socials. I'm Rory McConville. I think 2, which was unfortunate. Maybe I should change that. But Rory McConville 2.
Rory McConville 69. You should change it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Go check out Terminator Metal. Check out Time Before Time if you've never seen it. And seriously, y'all, go check out their works. King Spawn, Thundercats, lots of cool stuff on the horizons. We really appreciate you guys being here. We're dipping out, y'all. Station, pop, pop, boom. Be excellent to each other.